In this segment, Chef Peterson will prepare pot au choux or eclair paste, which will yield 2 to 2.5 pounds dough. Ingredients are 8 fluid ounces water, 1 1/2 teaspoons salt, 2 teaspoons granulated sugar, 7.5 ounces unsalted butter, 5 to 7 eggs, and 8 ounces all-purpose flour.
Pâte à choux is a classic French pastry that profiterolles and eclairs are made from. Cream puffs is made out of pâte à choux, and pâte à choux is derived from the word is mean to cherries, and it's a pastry that's been around since the 16th century in France. In order to make a nice pâte à choux, we start out with some water. We have some butter. Like to have room temperature butter. It melts faster when you cook your panade. We have sugar, and we have salt, and we have bread flour, and we have fresh eggs. In order to make the panade, we need to take our water, and we take our butter and put in our pot here. And the pâte à choux is one of the few pastries that actually is cooked before it's baked. In order for us to create the pâte à choux and make it come out the way we want it, we have to cook our panade very carefully, and we'll do that on top of the stove over here. We also add the sugar to our water as well as the salt. In order for the pâte à choux to come out properly, it's important that we bring we melt the butter first in the water, combined with the sugar and the salt, and we let it come to a boil. Then we're going to add our flour. I always make sure that I cube the butter first to make it easier and quicker for us to boil our water. While this is coming to a boil, I'm going to get my flour ready. I like to use a piece of paper in order to get my flour into the pot a little bit easier. And I have my flour already scaled off here. This prevents the flour from coming in one big lump when you put it in your water and butter mixture. It's very important when you make a panade not to have it lumpy, so it's very important that the flour does not dump in there all at once. The panade is basically a mixture of water, shortening, and flour. It's almost like a roux. However, I believe there's a little bit more shortening in this mixture here, and you don't cook it as long. It's very important that you do not overcook the panade. Okay, we come almost to a boil. However, it's very important to be patient and make sure that your water boils exactly like it's supposed to boil before you take it off the stove and add your flour. Some people like to add flour on the stove. I like to take it off the stove to ensure that you can mix it properly, that it's nice and smooth before you put it back on the stove and create the panade that you need to do a proper eclair or pâte à choux mix. In order to do that, we're looking for a small film on the bottom of the pot. When that is created on the bottom of the pot, we know our panade is ready. If you overcook it, it will actually separate it. If you undercook it, it'll be too runny and it will not come out nice as you bag it out on your paper. Now we see that the water has started to come to a boil. I want it to come to a roaring boil to make absolutely sure that we have the heat that we need for the protein to open up and absorb all the moisture that we have in this mixture. As you can see right now, we're coming to a roaring boil. At this point, I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to carefully blend in my flour. It's important that we do it right away because we don't want to lose any of the heat. Very carefully, just add a little flour at a time. Try to get not as few lumps as possible. That's why it's important to very gently fold in a little at a time here. As you see, the protein in the flour is soaking up the moisture, as you can see like this. It's soaking up the moisture, and what we want to very gently do here is make sure we make a real nice roux here, or panade basically. It will look like a roux. However, we're just going to put it back on the stove for just a couple of minutes. It only takes a minute to a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes the most. But see how this is supposed to be? Comes together very smoothly. And this time I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it back on the stove. And I'm just going to very gently, I'm going to keep stirring until that the panade is mixing together, where it has a nice film on the bottom of the pot. When that film on the bottom of the pot has formed, I know that a panade is ready. Okay, all right. Here we have the panade all ready to go. If you take a look, as I put it in the bowl, I'm going to show you. If you take a look at the bottom of the pot, see this? This is the film I'm talking about. This is just what we're looking for to make sure that our panade is ready to go. Anything beyond that, we probably overcooked it. Okay? Now, it's very important that the pâte à choux is put on the machine right away. And with a paddle attachment, we are going to go to mix it and start adding our eggs. You want to mix it to cool it down to about 140 degrees. And you mix it about a medium speed. And as you do that, you're cooling down the panade just enough that the eggs will not cook while you are adding them to them. At this point here, I can see my steam is coming out of the panade, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding 1 egg at a time. Oops, 2 eggs at a time. It's very important that as soon as the eggs is absorbed that you have added, that you just keep adding eggs to the mixture. The mixture must be warm when you bag it out in order to get the right steam. What you're doing, you're creating steam within the shell as you bake it, and in order to get good steam, the panade must be warm. You want to check, once in a while, you want to check the mixture. Even though the recipe may call for X amount of eggs, this recipe calls for 7 eggs. It does not necessarily mean it's going to take all the eggs. So it's a little bit of a feel to make sure that the panade, the pâte à choux is ready to go. If you get it too thin, it will not come up properly. You will not have the steam action that it does. What you do, you add 1 egg more, and only 1 egg at a time at the end of the mixture to ensure that you have the right consistency. It's crucial that the consistency is right. It looks like our panade is pretty good. Our pâte à choux looks like it's pretty good. I'm going to mix it for just a second, just to make sure that all the protein has started absorbing the moisture. And we're ready to go. Now what you're looking for in your pâte à choux mix here is that if you take, and I will show you, if you take and scrape down your pâte à choux and create a little bit of a hole, it just slowly should kind of cave in on you. If it caves in too fast, you make your mix a little bit too thin. And if it does not cave in at all, you need to maybe add another egg or another egg yolk in order to make the right consistency. But as you see here, this pâte à choux looks very, very good. It's looked very smooth, and it also has the right consistency. Okay? So now I'm ready to bag out. Before I bag out my eclairs and cream puffs, I want to show you a small trick in how to get your eclairs very nice and uniform. I have here a sheet pan with a sheet pan liner. And what we do, we take and we fold our paper in half first, like so. And then you make sure you crease it properly, that is nice and crisp. Then you fold it in half the other way. One more time. Then you fold it in half again. And then the last section here, you actually just fold it in thirds. By folding them in thirds, you're creating compartments within the paper you can use as a guideline in order to bag out the eclairs properly. And you'll see as I unfold the paper how that works out real well. I'm going to use this spatula here to just... As we fold out the paper, a pattern unfolds. They can use as a guideline. And if you're a little bit of a novice when it comes to bagging out eclairs and cream puffs, this is a great tool for you to have the right size and consistent size every time you bag them out. Okay? So let me show you how it goes. Make sure you don't overfill your bag. Two reasons. Now we have disposable bags. They may break on you if there's too much in there. And also for the easier handling. Now you have these compartments here. When you bag out your eclairs, you go every other one. And then you have your perfect eclair size. Sometimes it might be easy to flip it around. And then we go catty corner here. Otherwise, they'll go back to back. They'll grow together as they bake. Oops, I'll put that aside, and I'll make a pan of cream puffs also. When you do the cream puffs, there's a basic technique for that also. And as you see with the eclairs, you want to leave room for them to expand, because as the steam forms within the pâte à choux shell, they will expand. Okay. Here I have my half a sheet. So when you bag out your profiterole or cream puff as you like it, you just put your bag down and then straight up. Give it about 1 inch space in between each cream puff. Try to make sure to make the same size cream puffs. Make them uniform. This is one application you can do. There's also, you can also do it like this, where you do like a little rosette. But either way you do it, uniformity is very important when you do cream puffs like this. Okay. Okay, so here we have our backed out pâte à choux. Before I put my cream puffs in the oven, I'd like to show you a small trick in order for us to not have this pointed surface on the cream puffs. We want a nice round cream puff. So I have a little cup here with some water, and I just very gently with my finger just pat down with a wet finger the points of the cream puffs. You can also use oil. Some people prefer to use a pastry brush with a little bit of oil on to pat them down. I think it's just as easy just to use them with your finger here. But this way, when the cream puff puffs up in the oven, they come out nice and even, it's nice and round. They're very easy to ice and decorate. Now we're going to put them in the 425 degree preheated oven. And the eclairs as well. And remember, you bake them at 425 degrees for about 10 minutes, and then you turn the oven down to 350 degrees. As the cream puffs up, the outside shell will dry out, the inside of the pâte à choux will crackleate, and you'll have a perfect pastry shelf to do for your cream puffs and your eclairs. Now I want to take the cream puffs out of the oven. You can see how they come out and how they're baked. First we have our cream puffs here. They come up nice and round. And we have our eclairs. And let me show you how a perfect shell should look inside. There should be just nothing but the shell left, and then we have the open cream puff in here to fill up with our cream as you choose it. Yeah? All right. In order for us to fill up the eclairs properly, I take my eclair shell and I make a small hole with the paring knife into the bottom of the cream puffs in two different places, so they're easier to fill up. And I have done this to these shells already, now that they've been out of the oven for a little while, and I'd like to show you how to fill them up. I have a pastry bag with my pastry cream in here, and as you see, I have the bottom of the eclair is very easy to. You just fill up by filling, you can feel that the inside is filling up because it's just an empty chamber in there, and then you put your eclair down. Again, just a slight squeeze in both sides of the eclair, and now your eclair is completely full with cream. Okay? One more time. As you hold the eclairs in your hand, you can feel the custard going into the eclair. Okay. In order to finish up the eclair, I have some freshly made ganache right here that I'm going to go ahead and ice the eclair with. Okay. Basically what you do, you just take and dip your eclair in the ganache like this. And what you're going to have here is a perfectly example of a very classical eclair. And this recipe has been around since the 1600s. It's a pâte à choux. And again, it comes from the French word to cherish. And as you see these eclairs finished off here, I believe you can probably understand why. All right. A very classical French pastry called pâte à choux as a finished product.